friends, welcome back to the vlog. This week was especially fun. Okay, so I feel like from here on out, the weeks are gonna get especially more and more fun, and then like the last week of me being here in Oklahoma is gonna be especially fun. So you gotta stay tuned. But this past week, we started off with my mom's birthday. It was on the 22nd, and she turned 58. And so we went out to a Mexican restaurant, which is one of our favorites. And literally, life is just so crazy. Because why was the waiter at the restaurant not only hitting on me, like completely, like not even trying to be subtle about it. Like by the end of the day, like by the end of our being there, while we were paying our check, he kept asking me, he was like, oh, nombro. And I was like, Moquito español. Like, I don't speak Spanish, you don't speak very much English. So it's like, there's no reason for me to have your number because I can't talk to you. So it was like, he was just completely like putting on the full court press on me. And then I asked him, he was like, what's your name? And I said, Virginia. And I said, what's your name? And he said, my name's Mario. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I will need a check now. Okay, thanks.
But anyways, freaky coincidences aside, that was that like early afternoon, and by that evening was a vacation Bible school time. And so, like I said last week, the theme was magnify, and so there were a bunch of bugs and like garden themes and animals, flowers. That was another big thing, was a lot of flowers. And so it all pulled together really well. The kids, they had these little songs and dances that they were supposed to learn for the week. And they were all really cute. And they did some skits. My mom's husband, who's the pastor, and one of the deacons, they were doing some skits for the kids. And then after that would happen, then we would break up into our small groups. So they had one class in the gym. They had one class in, like one of the different classrooms. I guess like in one class, they like looked at bugs. Like they had magnifying glasses where they looked at bugs, like a tarantula and a monarch butterfly and a moth. And so I'm glad they enjoyed that. That would have not been for me. I do not like insects at all, especially not a tarantula. I've been like, ugh. But that was that class. I think they had another class where they maybe did some arts and crafts. And then my mom and I's class, we were doing like a story time. So we would take a passage from the Bible. Ours were like Luke 11 and 12, I believe. Like one day was 11, next day was 12. And we were talking about those stories. It was a story, the first day was a story about how the disciples, they try to tell the children to stay away from Jesus. And Jesus was like, let the little children come unto me. And then the next day was the story about Jesus sleeping in the boat when the boat is, like when the sea is, tumultuous. And then the disciples were like, save us, we're gonna die. So it was those two stories that we were talking about. And the kids really enjoyed that. And my mom and I were both very animated. So we made it fun for the kids. And we did silly voices. And, we took turns. And I would tell them like a little fun fact, like to tie it in with the theme. Because it's like, okay, well, what does Jesus, telling little children to come to him, what does that actually have to do with like bugs and magnifying glasses? So I tried to tie it in. And I was like, oh, like I had an animal fact each day, and the first day was a kangaroo, and I said, when a kangaroo was first born, they're called a joey, and they live in their mother's pouch, and they have to fully rely on their mother for everything that they need. And then later on, I would tie it into the message and say, the same way that we have to fully rely on Jesus to save us from our sins, because we can't do it ourselves. And they were like, oh, it's like, yeah. And before we even went to the final day of Vacation Bible School, we did some shopping for that weekend because we were going to be going on a little, miniature getaway for that weekend. We went and did some shopping at this store that is basically like Oklahoma's version of TJ Maxx or Marshall's. And so, at these stores, they have like oversupply, or they have things that aren't as popular as they used to be. And so it's just kind of where products and brands go to die. But they had Olaplex there, which is very popular right now, and it's like really expensive. And so the fact that they had like legit on brand Olaplex, I was like, oh, I actually do need to move here. Like, I need to stay here. And then later on, the last day of Vacation Bible School, they had like this really big blow up slide for the kids, like a water slide. And my mom, she was like, are you gonna get up there? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then I'm looking at the thing, I'm like, now, what does my big ass what am I gonna be doing up there on that slide? You know, moving, getting in the way of all these kids. I'm like, let me just sit down somewhere and let the kids enjoy their stuff, okay? Keep forgetting that I'm like on the brink, like I'm on the precipice of being like 30 years old. It's like, okay, things that I would have done like even in my early 30s, it's like, I mean, in my early 20s, it's like, maybe not. And so this was also my second week of trying to do my 10,000 steps per day, and I'm happy to report that I didn't always register like on my watch or on my phone because I didn't always have those things. But most of the days, well, I'm pretty sure like all of the days I hit my step goal, even though it didn't always register. And so I was keeping up with it. I did my nightly walk that night after Vacation Bible School. And that following morning, we got up really early to go to one of my mom's husband. He has two sons, and one of them, he works on a camp. And the camp is like on a ranch. So there's horses and there's no cows, just horses. So yeah, just horses. But we spent Friday and Saturday there, and it was so great. It was like summer camp, you know, for us. And so we ate with the campers, and we swam in the pool, and we just did a whole bunch of different stuff like go-karting. And even though I had met his family before, but it was only one other time. When they got married, I came down to Oklahoma and I met everybody, and it was really great. But I was only here for like maybe 2 to 3 days. I don't fully remember exactly. And so it was very brief, and it was like 4 years ago. And so this weekend, even though this was still only 2 days, it was much more impactful because I wasn't focusing on other stuff. Like I wasn't focusing on like just celebrating my mom, you know, getting married. I was actually focusing on spending time with the family and getting to know them and just trying to really soak up that good family time. And MJ, he got to meet his cousins, you know, his, I guess, step cousins or cousins-in-law. Anyways, he got to meet them, and they were just so sweet. They were just like doting on him. And, you know, I find it really interesting how kids, they like babies. You know, it's like the adults are the ones who've been brainwashed by our modern society and feminism to hate children. But kids have not gotten that poison yet. And so whenever they, like anywhere, like not even just his cousins, but like kids anywhere, kids at the church, kids out in public, you know, they'll see him and they'll immediately say, "Oh, baby." And they just want to come up to him and look at him and like touch him. And I'm just like, yeah, it is a little baby. And so, like I said, once again, I'm keeping up with my 10,000 steps. And so when I told the family, because they were going to play some games, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to go on a walk and I'll come back and play later. And they were like, oh, if you're going to go on a walk, well, I'll go on a walk. So I was like, let's go. So wrangled the family in for a big walk. And sadly, the walk that they did, it was like down to this outdoor chapel. And it was nice and all, but it wasn't all the steps that I needed. So when they rode back to the cabin that we were staying in, or the house that they were staying in, we were staying in a cabin separately. When everybody rode back to the house, I walked back to the house. And so I think I got maybe like 9,000 steps that day. But by the time I got back to the house, it was late. And everybody was still doing stuff. I don't want to make like my weight loss journey and getting skinny. Like I don't want to make that my whole personality and like swallow my whole life up in that. But it is something that's important to me. And so I wanted to make time for it. But, you know, that's not the main thing. So I feel like that's a balance. You know, you don't want to be like, oh, you know, all I think about is, you know, just how can I lose weight and how can I get steps and how can I be active? You know, like I feel like there's a balance. So I want to say I did a good job of balancing myself out that weekend, but I did not because the following week I had gained some weight. So I was like, okay, maybe I should have just focused on like no time for family, only steps. But anyways, rounded out the weekend by doing some horseback riding. And this was the number one thing that I was excited for. And then as soon as I got on the horse, I was like, I want to get off. This is scary. I had only ever ridden on like mules and ponies. And I hadn't done that in like years. So being on an animal for a ride was a very unfamiliar feeling to me, especially one that big. And so I was just like, oh, why did I sign up for this? Like, why did I do this? It reminded me of when I was a kid and I begged my mom to take me to a wax museum. And as soon as I got there, I was afraid because they looked like dead bodies. But I pushed through because we had come all this way and she already paid for it and everything. But it reminded me a lot of that. And it's like, I talked about riding the horses. Like, I want to ride some horses. And then I get there and I'm just like, oh, this was a mistake. But it was fun. a good time was had by y'all, and that was a perfect way to end out the week. So yes, friends, I thank you so much for tuning in and watching for yet another week in my life and keeping up with me. And please hold me accountable, friends. Okay, so we're on the following week now, but just keep leaving me those comments of encouragement, because things are back moving in the right direction with the steps and the weight loss. And so I am very excited. So whenever I get to, do the big unveiling of when I reach my goal, you guys will know that it was partly because you encouraged me and kept me going. But I look forward to talking to you guys again. Leave a like, a comment, and share the video, and let me know what other things that I should be doing while I'm here in Oklahoma. And I will talk to you guys again real soon.